What's up, YouTube? It's your boy Rashard King. Heading downstairs right now. Babies are asleep, but right now I'm starting. I want to start like a little blog kind of thing, or whatever you want to call it. Because right now I'm trying to take up this whole fitness modeling thing. Some people have been asking me to do it. Some people think that I would be pretty good at it. So this right now is kind of like an intro video, just kind of explaining like what my plans are, what my expectations are. I'm not expecting anything to come from this, like anything major. I just kind of want to track like my progress through doing something like this. This is a whole new venture for me. I come from, weight training, weightlifting, primarily for football. My dad was a football player, my older brother was a football player, so eventually I was going to be a football player. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So, just to kind of start, I started playing football when I was like in the 4th grade, and I played for about 5 years, Little League, and for the most part I was very good. Always had to play both ways, which wasn't fun. Excuse me for a second, I gotta charge my phone while I do this. But so I played 5 years of Little League football, and every year I was always like 10 pounds overweight, so I would always have to cut. And my dad, he was kind of a fitness freak, as you can say, so he had me doing carb cycling before people even knew what carb cycling was. So for 2 weeks, right before my weigh-in, because we had to do, it was by weigh-ins, not by age or grade or whatever. So 2 weeks before, I would have to go on this carb-restricted diet and eating dry tuna and chicken breasts and all that other crap. And I was young and didn't know anything, didn't know any different. So I went along with it, I did, and for those 5 years, always made weight and all that stuff. Then I got to high school. Started playing football, and the funny thing was my first 2 years of high school, I was a short, fat kid, not very popular, didn't know a lot of people. But then my sophomore year, I started playing and did pretty good. Went into after the football season was over, I decided to run track because short, fat kid, want to lose a little weight, want to pick up some speed, so decided to run track. So I started doing that, and it just so happened that, I started going through a whole physical change. So I grew, I went from, 5'6", 180 pounds, 190 pounds, to, 6'1", 195 pounds, but I was lean, I was shredded out, and this happened over a course of like, I don't know, maybe like 6 months or something like that, course of track season. So I caught a lot of grief from that, from classmates and stuff. They thought I was on steroids, and they were like, what are you doing? Like, this isn't even possible. You can't grow this tall and, get this strong or this muscular in such a short amount of time. But it was just, perfect timing. I had always been in the gym prior to that. I started weight training when I was like 11, and then coming up through high school, I was still lifting, and I was still lifting pretty heavy and pretty hard, but my body wasn't mature enough, so I still had a lot of that, baby fat on me. So once that kind of trimmed down and all these other, things just happened, kind of fell in place. So going through my junior and senior year of high school, I started both seasons, did pretty well. My junior year was honorable mention. Senior year I made, I can't remember, maybe 2nd or 3rd team, all county. So, did pretty good. Left from home. I came to Nebraska, and that was kind of something different. I come from a big city, Miami, Florida, the hustle and bustle, the moving and all that stuff, and coming to Nebraska, I see cornfields and, brick buildings, and it's like, what is really going on, But I adjusted to it. I met people, and people were, they were accepting and stuff. So I kind of found myself sticking here, and I met a lot of great people along the way. I played college football. I played, I guess you could call it 3 years. I redshirted my first year. Second year, I was like second, third string, something like that. And then going into the following year, I tore my ACL in the springtime, so I had to sit out a whole year, and that was just a whole disaster. I mean, you know, anybody who's had a knee surgery, they know how devastating that is. So I went from at the peak of my like at the peak to like rock bottom. You know, I lost all my gains. I gained like 40 pounds of fat. I was just huge, and I went back home to Miami to get my knee surgery, and I came back with all this weight, and I was out of shape, and it was just bad news for me, and I really didn't know like how I could handle this, because you know, it was like being back, you know, like in middle school and elementary school, you know, a little fat kid. So I started doing a lot of rehab work and all that, and then I was always pushing myself to, you know, after my rehab sessions, to go into like the student weight room and jump on the bike or the elliptical or the treadmill, just doing extra work, trying to burn extra calories. And at first it wasn't something like, oh, I want, you know, be shredded and all this stuff. It was just, I need to lose this weight if I want to perform for my sport. So that was mainly my drive. And I kind of went back to what I learned, you know, with the whole, you know, carb cycling and all that stuff. So I did that, and in about 4 months I dropped down to like, I don't know, 218. So I went from like 255 to like 218 in like 4 or 5 months, which I don't think was healthy, to drop, you know, 30-something pounds that fast. But I found myself doing it because I want to really get back into my sport, and I was really trying to make it before the season ended, but it just wasn't possible. It just wasn't enough time to really rehab myself, and you know rehab my knee along with being cardiovascular ready to jump into collegiate football. It just wasn't possible. So after that, I went through the off-season training, did all that stuff, and came back the next year and rotated in. Then my senior year I started, and you know, finished it out well. I ended up graduating from the college and all that stuff, and I kind of took some time off away from doing school or really trying to jump